Okay, so today we're going to be looking at discovered attacks and discovered checks and how it can really help you tactically in a game. So let's start off with the first puzzle. So let's just look at the active pieces in the game right now. We have our queen, we have our knight, and we have this pawn. And we can see that black's king is relatively open. So now, when I look for discovered checks or discovered attacks, I look for aligned pieces. And I usually try to get aligned pieces in my favor during games, so that I can have and set up a discovered attack or a discovered check. So here, I see this pawn, my queen, and their king aligned. So if I move this pawn away from this file, then I will be able to check the king. So the only way I can move this pawn away from this file is going pawn takes on d5. So after pawn takes on d5, I am giving a check on the king as well as attacking the queen at the same time. So in this case, I would be winning a queen. So e takes d5 is the correct move, and they tried to defend the check while moving the queen at the same time, but luckily this pawn is protecting that square, and I can go d takes on e6. So now, once again, let's just look at the play that we have in our pieces. We see our rook, we see our bishop, and we see this bishop, and this king is also relatively open, and we do have some play towards the king. So here we can see that our king is being checked. So we have two options in this case. We have either to move our king away from the check, or we have to block the check itself. So let's look at moving away the king. If we move away the king, we don't really have any play, and we're just losing tempo. So let's try to look for some blocks. So the first block that I see is going pawn to c5. The bishop is defending the pawn on c5, so the queen can't take it, but the queen can go queen takes on b5, and we'll just be losing a bishop. So now another block that I see is rook to d4, but that's just leading me to lose my rook. And the final block that I see is bishop to c5, and that is also doing a discovered check at the same time, because once again, we're looking for the aligned pieces. We see our rook, we see our bishop, and we see their king. So if we move this bishop away, we'll be giving a check to the king at the same time. And here we want to attack a certain piece in order to gain material. So if you go bishop to c5, we'll be checking the king, and we'll be attacking the queen. So they move their king because it's a forced move, and then we can just grab the queen on b6. So let's start with analyzing this position. So we have two rooks and a bishop, and they have just two rooks and a couple of pawns. We also have a couple of pawns, but essentially we're up a bishop. So now we see that all these pieces are lined together, and I have a piece that's sitting in the middle of these four rooks. So here I should have some discovered check or a discovered attack play. So the only check I really do see with this bishop is bishop to c2, and that's giving a check on the king. So now white has two options here. One is taking the bishop with either the king or the rook, and the other is just moving the king away. So if I go bishop to c2, white can go rook takes on c2. And after rook takes on c2, I can win the rook on a1, and I'm up in exchange. So in this case, that works. So now let's look at the next option, king takes on c2. After king takes c2, I can go rook takes on a2, and then after rook takes back, I have rook takes on a2 again, and I am up a rook in the endgame. So that works as well. So after bishop to c2, let's look at the final option, king moving away. They can move to any square they would like, and if they move their king away, then I can go rook takes on a2 once again, and I'll be up a rook and a bishop in the endgame. So bishop to c2 is winning. Okay, once again, let's analyze the position, and we've seen something like this before as well. So we have our queen and our rook. Those are mainly the two active pieces in the game, and we are in check. So two options once again. One is just moving the king away, and one is just blocking the check. So let's look at the blocks, because moving the king doesn't really gain us any material, and here we're down a bishop, so we really want to get material or have some sort of play. So moving the king away should not be our first intentions. Let's look for some blocks. So first move is queen f1. So here it is a block that works because it is defended by the rook, but we don't really want to trade queens here because we're down a bishop, so we don't really want to go into the endgame. So queen to f1 is not really the best move here. The next block that I see is rook to f1, where we are attacking the queen and the queen is defending the rook. And along with that, we're doing the discovered check. We're attacking the queen with our rook and we're giving check with our queen. So here, once again, we look for the aligned pieces. We see our queen, we see our rook, and we see their king. And we want to move our rook away in order to gain material. Another option that could have worked if we weren't in check was rook to b7, and this would actually lead to winning the queen as well. But since we are in check, we do have to block the check, so rook to f1 works as well.